Hello, everybody. I'm so sorry I'm a bit late today. I've actually been wrangling with my office computer. I was going to use my home computer to create this, but then I was at the office for some meetings and figured out that I should just stay put and say what I gotta say to you today. So hopefully this video will help you. It's actually one in which I'm going to be looking at several examples from your peers. So some of you might have even read these posts, these 4 posts that I got permission to utilize as you were completing Unit 3. But what I want to do, and you can see here that you're actually looking at my computer screen, and what I've done is I've excerpted the entire post from 4 of your peers. I have examined the beautiful portions of them, but I've also given some suggestions since nothing is, 100% perfect all of the time. We're always in process. So what I'm going to be doing here, hopefully, is not only talking about the content of the posts that you created and looking at some of these exemplary posts, but also referencing ways to make them even better since you are in process of composing an essay. So you're writing that writing assignment that is due Wednesday. So my goal is not just to talk about discussion posts and bettering them going forward, but also to discuss writing in general. And I'm not just talking about writing for old Dr. Nsinga's class, a literature class, but analytical writing, what you're going to participate in classes like history, maybe even in nursing or biology or engineering. The places where you do have to compose arguments from grant proposals to arguing for particular findings or a hypothesis in science-based courses or disciplines, you want to be able to argue a point and support it. So here, obviously, you wrote about the Iliad. You may never, ever write about the Iliad again, and that might be very good for a good many of you. However, what I'm hoping that you gain is an experience that allows you not just to remember the Iliad fondly or negatively, depending, but also to be able to say I argued about that text successfully, meaning that I can therefore argue about another text, whatever that text might be, in whatever discipline it exists. You can do that successfully too. So please do keep in mind my goals are to discuss discussion posts, but also to discuss writing, because that's what you're working on right now. Okay, so this first example, and you can see my screen here. This first example I've actually excerpted here, but you can see I've annotated it. I'm going to go through several of these annotations in my 4 examples that I've taken from your peers. I've often commented on what I found to be quite beautiful about the language, or quite organized or argumentative, all of those being positive statements. But again, I've also pointed to ways that we could have had even more specificity or a better sense of what was to come in a paragraph. So again, keep in mind that all writing is in process. And so that's what I'm trying to illustrate here as I go through these exemplary examples of writing that I found as I was looking through your post yesterday. All right, so notice here, if you would, in this long post, and this was a very long post that illustrated beautifully the engagement that this student had with the epic, the Iliad. We begin here with some sentences that are nicely poetic, so again, beautifully phrased, but they do need a bit of anchoring, right? So remember, we're working within a very particular context. And so what I wanted to have here was just a little bit of anchoring. And you can see here that if we just look at the sentences, we have humans fear the divine gods because of their ability to strike down a mortal at every given moment. And they tremble upon feeling and seeing their presence. Isn't that a lovely sentence? It's very poetic. I do wish I had just a bit of revision to tell me which humans, where in time are we, right? We don't tend to think of our current westernized civilization as one that is polytheistic, right? Although there are religions that definitely have polytheism involved, we tend to come at religion with a very clear understanding of monotheism, this Judeo-Christian majority that we have here. So what's really important here, I think, is that we have a bit of anchoring just to give us context. just to say to us, this is where we are in time, right? So that we're not talking about the 21st century where we've got many more complications related to religion and religious structure. So just a couple words, right? The same thing here at the second sentence. We find evidence of similarities and dissimilarities in the female figure expressing concern for their male figure's decisions, the male figure firmly standing to deflect all who oppose their will, and the nurturing of their children in human and divine families. So again, we're giving an argument here, but I say maybe adding the Iliad. So in the Iliad, there is evidence of, right? So I say it would help here so much. I like the prose, but slight revisions that orient readers to your textual reference are important because they would add some razor sharpness, give us some punch to the introductory material. So again, this is a lovely introduction. I'm interested in it. But what I desire is just a bit of orientation. So in what text are we talking about? What family? What period of time? Just a slight revision. So again, we are still in good shape. This is still lovely to sort of begin this nice passage by examining these sentences, but just wanting a slightly orientation, right? Now, notice here, I love the use of quotations, right? So sit down and hold your tongue as I bid you for, if once I begin to lay my hands about you, right? So this is from Zeus or Jove, right? So we've definitely got this writer working hard to get to that 5 points in the specificity portion, the engagement portion of the rubric. And the only revision I would suggest here would be an introduction to the quotation, right? So Zeus says, Homer writes, we really want to think of quotations as codependent little suckers. They cannot appear out of nothingness and they cannot disappear. So they always have to have introductions and commentary. So what we're really doing is building our credibility when we introduce a quotation well, right? It just doesn't come out of nowhere. It comes out of our research or our understanding. So in book 1, in Homer's epic, so-and-so says, that just orients our reader and the quotation doesn't just appear. So again, notice how I'm just giving a bit of revision suggestion here because we're still in great shape as we're moving through, right? We're starting to talk about Zeus and the way that he treats Hera. And then we get lovely commentary. So like modern society, boundaries vary from culture to culture. I found this deliverance of speech as exaggerated masculinity or machismo. So I really love that the writer is giving me commentary. As I say here, it's wonderful to have the input, as it signals engagement with our readings. I wonder though, so this is me saying, push it a little farther. Does this sort of machismo smack of human men? Is there a conclusion sentiment you have that compares, contrasts this behavior with the human couple that comes next in this lovely analysis? So concluding here with 1 or 2 sentences, again, is it unexpected to have a god speak in such a way? If so, why? Is it, as a result, surprising, and for what reason? What does it tell us about the gods, at least in this text? Then we get this lovely transition into talking about Hector and Andromache. And look at this. We find the complete opposite tone and find Hector finds the moment to speak his mind about his duties as a leader, a soldier, and above all, his own masculinity. That's a lovely topic sentence. I didn't annotate it here, but it really gives us a sense of where we are going. And that's what a topic sentence does, folks. It lets the reader know what the paragraph is going to be about. The other way to think about it is a topic sentence is your permission slip. You craft it. It's what you give yourself permission to write about in a paragraph. Likewise, a thesis, so if we're an overall essay like you're working on now, a thesis is a permission slip. You are giving yourself because it lets you as the writer, the composer of the piece, know these are my boundaries and I can play within them. It lets your readers know this is what this essay is going to be about. It's not going to be about anything outside of the boundaries that the author's created. Now, because you've created the boundaries, which I love, you've created and can then revise them if your paragraphs become something different, right? So if you end up adding other details. I then slip down here in my annotation to this beautiful topic sentence. And I'm saying, look at this, everyone. Here, I say your peer creates a contendable claim. So again, it's an argument, a topic sentence that argues for contrasting qualities between these families, divine and mortal. He stakes a claim. He gives himself permission to talk about this subject matter and this subject matter alone. Right? So Hector is a contrast to Zeus, and he gives who gives the impression that he loves his family in a rarer form that includes at some points violence. So again, Hector is outstanding husband, and Zeus, however, loves his family in a rarer form. And again, that includes at some points violence. So this writer is trying to be very kind to Jove or Zeus here, but notice the contrast, right? And then the rest of the paragraph offers evidence between or of conversation or actions that occur in the divine family, and then of course Hector's family. Notice that. So interesting here. All right. Now, this author decided at the very end to ask some questions. He's really trying to engage you and really get people to respond to his ideas. And that's great too. For the most part, though, I'm looking here at the way that we have these paragraphs structured. It's very clear that this reader thought about what he'd read and then produced something that was detailed, that exhibits to me, the instructor, and to you, his peers, that he's really thought about this. He's grappled with the text. All right. This next one is pretty and color-coded. I really liked looking at this in this way because I want to illustrate to you some structures of paragraphing. I've given you the legend here. So green would be the author arguing. Here he includes an analogy that then turns into an extended metaphor. Blue is author commentary. So again, him commenting on his own ideas. And purple is evidence from the text. So author commentary often follows evidence. I should have put those in a different order. These are two paragraphs written, and you can see here I've labeled them again and color-coded them, and I've also heavily annotated them to illustrate to you a few things going on. I do want to let you know that I'm probably going to come to the end of talking about this first paragraph and then offer you another video because I am a motor mouth and I want to talk through all of these. So each of these videos can only be 15 minutes on Screencast-O-Matic. So do go on to the next video after I talk about this. All right, so notice how green is the author argument. So we have the author writing, Hector and Achilles, two sides of the same coin. That's our first sentence. So it's pretty much, we're going to get this argument here that Hector and Achilles are two sides, but yet the same. We find ourselves tempted to the perennial commentaries on the currency, the preeminent principles of the Trojan War, right? Albeit these commentaries are and should be fait accompli for any student of pre-modern world literature, I urge the reader, so notice this writer is reaching out to y'all. I urge the reader to look past the typical superficial ogling of that mixed luminescence, so he's kind of bringing in this coinage analogy here, and hear the heart of Homer's ominous message. So this guy, this author is saying to us, I have looked past some surface features, some surface comparisons, and I have a heart, or I've identified the heart of Homer's message. Okay, now I'm moving into blue now, author commentary. One can make the argument that the two champions stand in diametric opposition. That path paints Achilles as a warmonger. It highlights his divine heritage, his quest for glory, and the many women he takes into his household. That path stands in opposition to the visage of mortal Hector as a home-loving protector drawn to war only by his love of country and family. Notice here what's interesting is this is not only commentary, right, kind of pointing to these, what he has called typical superficial ogling of the comparisons, but it also serves as evidence. So I put purple around blue because he's directly pointing to the text, all of these surface similarities, right? Then, let's see, surface contrast, pardon me. Then he moves into This contrast of characters is obvious on the first reading of the text, but hides the true nature of the story's moral. So notice how he's pushing us into the second paragraph. It's a lovely transitionary sentence here that moves us into this second paragraph where the thrust of the argument is, and that's coming up in the next video. So go to the next one, please.